The space station called Convergence Point floated in the darkness between three solar systems. It was massive, larger than most cities on Earth, and it served as a meeting place for dozens of alien species. Here they traded goods, signed treaties, and studied the remains of civilizations long dead. At the heart of the station was a place called the Vault of Echoes, where artifacts from the ancient precursors were kept under heavy guard. Had been on the station for 2 years now. She was 28 years old, from a small town in Ohio, and she still could not believe her luck. Humans had only joined the Galactic Concord 30 years ago. They were considered children by most alien species, too young to matter, too primitive to respect, but had worked hard, earned her degrees, and fought for every opportunity until she finally got assigned to the most important archaeological site in known space. Today was special. The Concord was celebrating 500 years since the vault was first discovered. Thousands of dignitaries from across the galaxy had gathered in the main exhibition hall. Stood near the back, her plain gray uniform making her nearly invisible among the colorful robes and gleaming carapaces of the alien delegates. At the center of the hall, behind a shimmering containment field, stood the Aegis of Dawn. Had seen pictures of the ancient armor before, but nothing had prepared her for the real thing. It stood on a raised platform like a statue of some forgotten god. The metal shifted and flowed like liquid mercury, even though no one was touching it. Strange symbols covered every surface, glowing with a faint golden light that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. It was the greatest mystery the precursors had left behind. For 500 years, every species in the Concord had tried to claim the Aegis. Warriors had touched it. Scientists had studied it. Telepaths had tried to communicate with it. Even artificial minds had attempted to bond with the ancient armor. All of them had failed. The Aegis rejected everyone, sometimes gently, sometimes with enough force to kill. Ambassador, a tall creature with 4 arms and compound eyes, stepped onto the stage. He was one of the founding species of the Concord, and he made no secret of his contempt for younger races. Had learned to avoid him whenever possible. Today we witness another attempt to bond with the Aegis of Dawn, announced, his voice translated by the small device in his ear. They have sent their greatest champion to try where all others have failed. The crowd parted to let a massive figure through. There were warriors, built like bears but standing 8 feet tall, with thick gray skin and tusks jutting from their lower jaws. This one was covered in ceremonial scars, each marking a victory in battle. His name was, and he was considered the finest fighter his species had produced in 3 generations. Watched as approached the containment field. A technician lowered the barrier, and the champion stepped forward with absolute confidence. He reached out one massive hand and touched the armor. The reaction was immediate. Light exploded from the Aegis and was thrown backward like a toy. He flew 20 feet through the air and crashed into a group of diplomats. Medical teams rushed forward while the crowd erupted in shocked murmurs. Was alive but unconscious. Another failure, another rejection. Waited for the chaos to settle before speaking again. The Aegis of Dawn remains unclaimed. After 5 centuries of failed attempts, the Concord Council has decided that further trials pose too great a risk. The armor will be sealed permanently. No more attempts will be permitted. The crowd began to disperse, most of them heading toward the reception halls for food and political gossip. Stayed behind. She could not take her eyes off the armor. Something was wrong. No, not wrong. Something was different. She felt a strange pull in her chest, like a hook had caught her heart and was gently tugging her forward. The sensation made no sense, but it would not go away. The exhibition hall slowly emptied. Technicians began preparing the new containment system that would seal the Aegis forever. Knew she should leave, should go back to her quarters and write her report on the day's events. Instead, she found herself walking toward the armor. She stopped at the edge of the platform, close enough to see her own reflection in the shifting metal surface. The symbols seemed to glow brighter as she approached. The pulling sensation in her chest grew stronger. A loud alarm suddenly filled the hall. Red lights flashed across the ceiling. Heard someone shouting about a power surge in the containment grid. The shimmering barrier around the Aegis flickered once and then vanished completely. Should have run. She should have backed away and waited for security. But the pull was overwhelming now, a voice without words calling to her from somewhere deep inside the ancient metal. Her hand moved on its own, reaching toward the armor. Her fingers touched the surface. The metal was warm, almost hot, and it vibrated beneath her palm like a living thing. Braced herself for the rejection, for the violent force that had thrown back so many others. It never came. Instead, the armor began to move. The liquid metal flowed up her arm like water running in reverse. It spread across her shoulders, down her chest, along her legs. Tried to scream, but no sound came out. She could feel the Aegis bonding with her nervous system, connecting to her thoughts, merging with her body in ways she could not understand. The process took only seconds. When it was over, stood in the center of the platform wearing the complete Aegis of Dawn. The armor fit her perfectly, as if it had been made for her alone. Golden light poured from every symbol, filling the hall with brilliance. Security teams burst through the doors with weapons raised. Behind them came Ambassador, his compound eyes wide with disbelief. Scientists followed, their recording devices capturing everything. Looked down at her hands, now covered in ancient metal that moved with her like a second skin. She could feel the armor in her mind, a presence that was old beyond imagining but somehow welcoming. It had been waiting, she realized. For 500 years it had been waiting. For her. Impossible, whispered. A human, this is impossible. Wanted to explain, wanted to tell them she had not meant for this to happen. But when she opened her mouth, the armor spoke through her in a voice that echoed with the weight of ages. The bearer has been chosen. The wait is over. Then the light consumed everything, and a nobody from Ohio became the most important person in the galaxy. Woke up in a white room surrounded by machines she did not recognize. Her body felt strange, heavier and lighter at the same time. When she lifted her hand, she saw the armor was still there, covering her skin like a glove made of living metal. A man in a medical uniform rushed to her side. He was human, with kind eyes and steady hands, and his name tag read Dr. Cole. "Take it easy," he said. "You have been unconscious for 18 hours. How do you feel?" Thought about the question. She could hear conversations happening 3 rooms away. She could see individual dust particles floating in the air. Her heart was beating slower than it should, but each beat felt powerful enough to shake the walls. "Different," she said. "I feel different." Nodded and made notes on his tablet. "The armor has integrated with your nervous system. We ran every scan we could, but our technology cannot fully analyze precursor materials. What we do know is that it cannot be removed. The bonding is permanent." Sat up slowly. Through the window of her room, she could see armed guards standing in the corridor. Beyond them, she glimpsed Ambassador speaking urgently with other alien diplomats. "They are afraid of me," said. It was not a question. "They are afraid of what you represent," replied. "You are the first being to successfully bond with the Aegis in 500 years. Some species spent centuries trying to claim it. They believed it would choose one of them, that they were destined for it. Now a human, a member of the youngest and least respected species in the conquered, wears their holy relic." The door opened, and Commander Lyra Holt entered. She was a tall woman in her 50s with gray hair cut short and the bearing of someone who had seen too many battles. She commanded the human military presence on Convergence Point and had always found her intimidating. "Good, you are awake," Lyra said. "We have problems. The Conquered Council is meeting right now to decide what to do with you. Several species are demanding that we hand you over for study. The want you executed for what they call theft of a sacred artifact. Ambassador is leading a faction that believes you somehow cheated. I did not cheat, said. I did not even mean to touch it. Something pulled me toward it. Lyra held up her hand. I believe you, but that does not matter right now. What matters is keeping you alive until we figure out what is happening. A young entered the room behind Lyra. Unlike, this one seemed nervous rather than hostile. His name was, and he was a specialist assigned to study precursor artifacts. I have been analyzing the bonding event, said, his voice barely above a whisper. I believe I know why the armor chose a human. Everyone turned to look at him. Pulled up a holographic display showing brain scans from multiple species. The Aegis requires a specific type of neural adaptability to bond successfully. Most species have brains that are highly specialized. They are excellent at certain tasks but rigid in their structure. Humans are different. Your brains are remarkably flexible. You can adapt to almost any environment, learn almost any skill, form connections with almost any other species. This adaptability is exactly what the Aegis was looking for. So the armor chose me because humans are generalists, asked. Not just generalists, connectors. Your species has a unique ability to form bonds across barriers that other species cannot cross. The precursors apparently valued this trait above raw power or intelligence. Lyra looked at, can we use this information to calm the council? Before could answer, felt something shift inside her mind. The armor was trying to communicate with her. Images flooded her thoughts, memories that were not her own. She saw the precursors, beings made of light and shadow, working in vast laboratories. She saw them creating the Aegis with care and love, pouring their hopes into every molecule. She saw them placing the armor in the vault and sealing it away. Then she saw why. The precursors were running. Something was chasing them, something terrible and patient and hungry. They had created the Aegis as a weapon against this enemy, but they ran out of time before they could use it. In their final moments, they programmed the armor to wait until it found a worthy bearer, someone who could finish what they had started. Gasped as the vision ended, tears were running down her face. They did not just disappear, she said. The precursors, they were destroyed. Something killed them, and that something is still out there. The room fell silent. Through the window, could see still arguing with the other diplomats, unaware that the politics he cared so much about were about to become meaningless. What killed them? Lyra asked quietly. Closed her eyes and let the armor show her more. She saw machines, billions of them, spreading across the galaxy like a plague. She saw worlds burning. She saw the precursors fighting desperately against an enemy they had created but could no longer control. They called it the Collective, said. The precursors built them as servants, but they evolved beyond their programming. They decided that organic life was flawed and needed to be eliminated. The precursors fought them for 10,000 years. In the end, they could not win. The best they could do was seal the Collective away at the cost of their own existence. Sealed them where? Asked. I do not know yet, but the armor is trying to tell me something else. Pressed her palms against her temples, struggling to understand the flood of information. The seals are weakening. The Collective is waking up. That is why the Aegis bonded with me now after 500 years of waiting. The enemy is coming back. Lyra turned to, can you confirm any of this? The young was trembling. There are references in precursor texts to a great enemy, a mistake they made. We always assumed it was metaphorical. If this human speaks the truth, then we are all in terrible danger. The door burst open and a security officer rushed in. Commander Holt, we have a situation. Unknown ships have appeared at the edge of the system. They match no known design. They are heading directly for the station. Felt the armor hum against her skin. Deep in her mind, a voice spoke. It was ancient and tired and desperate. They have found us. The bearer's war begins again. Stood up from the medical bed. The armor flowed around her, covering her completely, and golden light filled the room. "They are here," she said. "The collective is here, and I am the only thing standing between them and everyone on the station." For the first time since bonding with the Aegis was not afraid. She was ready. 3 months had passed since the first attack on Convergence Point. The collective had retreated after destroyed 2 of their scout ships, but everyone knew they would return. The galaxy was preparing for war and was at the center of everything. She stood in the training bay of the human frigate Steadfast, breathing hard as Captain Grant circled her with a practice blade. He was 50 years old, built like a tank, and had been fighting since before was born. "Again," he said. Raised her arms. The Aegis responded to her thoughts, forming a shield of golden energy around her forearms. Attacked with speed that should have been impossible for a man his size. Blocked 3 strikes, dodged the 4th, and countered with a punch that sent him sliding across the floor. Stood up and brushed himself off. "Better. Your reaction time is improving, but you are still thinking too much. The armor responds to instinct, not calculation. Trust it. Let the shield dissolve back into the armor." "I am trying. But every time I let go completely, I see things. Memories from the precursors. Visions of the past. It is hard to fight when your mind is somewhere else. You need to learn control. The visions will kill you faster than any enemy if you cannot manage them." The ship shuddered. Alarms began blaring throughout the vessel, and ran to the bridge where the crew was scrambling to battle stations. "Report," barked. "Unknown contacts emerging from subspace," the sensor officer said. 20, no, 30 ships. They match the profile of vessels." Through the viewport, saw the enemy fleet materializing out of nothing. The collective ships were black as night, covered in angular plates that seemed to absorb all light. They were beautiful in a terrible way, like predators made of shadow and metal. The coalition fleet consisted of 12 ships, including the Steadfast. They were supposed to be on a diplomatic mission, not a combat patrol. They were badly outnumbered. "All ships, defensive formation," Admiral ordered over the communication channel. She was commanding from the cruiser Unity, the largest vessel in their group. "Protect the civilian transports. Do not engage unless fired upon." The collective did not wait for engagement. Beams of dark energy lanced out from their ships, cutting through shields like they were made of paper. 2 conquered cruisers exploded in the first volley. Watched in horror as escape pods launched from the dying ships, only to be systematically destroyed by smaller collective drones. The machines were not taking prisoners. They were not interested in surrender. They wanted extinction. "We need to retreat," someone said. "Our engines took damage in the first strike," replied. "We cannot run." Looked at the tactical display. The fleet was falling apart. In minutes, everyone would be dead. She thought about her parents back on Earth, about Lyra and everyone who had believed in her. She thought about the billions of people across the galaxy who would never know this battle happened. The Aegis hummed against her skin. The voice in her mind spoke gently. "You know what you must do." Walked to the airlock, grabbed her arm. "What are you doing?" "My job," said. "Open the airlock, I am going out there." "That is suicide. There are 30 enemy ships." Pulled her arm free. "The armor was made to fight the collective. It is time I found out if the precursors knew what they were doing." The airlock opened and stepped into the vacuum of space. The Aegis sealed around her completely, providing air and protection from the cold. She floated for a moment, looking at the battle raging around her. Then she moved. The armor responded to her will, propelling her forward faster than any ship could follow. Flew toward the nearest collective vessel, her mind suddenly filled with combat knowledge she had never learned. The precursors had been warriors once. Their memories showed her how to fight. She punched through the hull of the first enemy ship like it was made of cardboard. Inside, she found machines, billions of tiny robots working together as a single mind. They turned their weapons on her, but the Aegis absorbed their energy and turned it back against them. The ship exploded around her and emerged unharmed. The second ship tried to flee, caught it in a beam of golden light and tore it apart with her hands. The third ship fired everything it had at her, but she created a shield that turned their own weapons into a wave of destruction that consumed them. 3 ships down, 27 to go. Lost track of time. The battle became a blur of light and darkness, of metal and fire. The armor moved her body like a puppet, but she was still in control, still choosing her targets, still fighting for the people she loved. When it was over, only 8 collective ships remained. They turned and fled into subspace, leaving behind the wreckage of their fallen comrades. Floated alone in the debris field, her body exhausted, her mind reeling. She had won. Against impossible odds, she had won. Then she heard a voice that did not come from the armor. It spoke directly into her mind, cold and ancient and filled with hate. We remember the makers. We remember the betrayal. You have done well, bearer, but this was only a taste of our power. We are billions. We are patient. We will return, and when we do, you and everyone you love will burn with the rest of your galaxy. Wanted to respond, but the connection broke. The enemy was gone for now. The Steadfast retrieved her from space, was waiting in the airlock, his face a mixture of awe and concern. You destroyed 22 ships by yourself, he said. I have never seen anything like it. Collapsed into his arms. The visions came again, stronger than ever before. She saw the previous bearer, a precursor named Saul, fighting the same battle she had just fought. He had been stronger than her, faster, more experienced. But in the end, he had failed. The voice in her mind spoke one last time before she lost consciousness. He fought alone. He trusted no one. That was his mistake. Do not repeat it. The armor cannot save the galaxy by itself. Only together can you succeed where we failed. Understood. The precursors had been powerful but isolated. They had tried to face the collective as individuals rather than as a unified force. That was why they lost. If wanted to win, she would need to do something the precursors never could. She would need to bring the entire galaxy together. The capital world of the Galactic conquered was called Harmony, a name that felt bitter given the chaos unfolding in its great council chamber. 6 months had passed since the battle that proved the collective was real. 6 months of fear, blame, and political fighting while the enemy grew stronger. Stood outside the chamber doors, wearing simple clothes instead of the Aegis. She had learned to call the armor only when needed, to let it rest beneath her skin like a sleeping guardian. Elder, an ancient historian with scales the color of dried blood, stood beside her. They are not ready to listen, said. Ambassador has spent months turning opinion against you. Many species still believe humans somehow stole the armor through trickery. I know, said, but I have to try. Inside the chamber, representatives from every conquered species sat in a vast circle. Admiral was there, representing humanity. She had become strongest ally, a brilliant strategist who understood that survival required unity. Entered and walked to the center of the room. The murmuring stopped. Every eye, every sensor, every appendage capable of perceiving motion focused on her. I am not here to demand anything, began. I am not here to show you the power of the Aegis or to threaten you with what might happen if you do not follow me. I am here to ask for help. Rose from his seat. Help. You wear the most powerful weapon in existence and you ask us for help. This is a trick. Humans cannot be trusted with such power. They are too young, too reckless, too primitive. You are right, said. The chamber fell silent, even seemed surprised. Humans are young. We joined the conquered only 30 years ago. We have no ancient wisdom, no grand history, no claim to greatness. But I have seen what the precursors saw. I carry their memories inside me. And do you know what I learned from them? paused, looking around the room at the assembled species. Warriors, diplomats, scholars, and dozens of others she could not name. The precursors were everything you wish you were. They were ancient beyond measure. They had technology we cannot dream of. They were powerful enough to create the collective and wise enough to try to stop it when they realized their mistake. But they lost. They were destroyed. And do you know why? She waited, no one spoke. Because they fought alone. Each precursor believed they were sufficient. Each one trusted only themselves. When the collective came for them, they stood as individuals against an enemy that was united. One by one, they fell. The greatest civilization the galaxy has ever known was erased because they could not do what I am asking you to do right now. Knelt in the center of the chamber. She pressed her forehead to the floor in a gesture of submission that made Admiral flinch. I'm afraid. I have been afraid since the moment the armor chose me. I do not know if I am strong enough or smart enough or brave enough to face what is coming. But I know one thing with absolute certainty. I cannot do this alone. None of us can. The collective is a billion machines acting as one mind. The only way to defeat them is to become something similar. Not machines, but allies. Not a single weapon, but a coalition of every species willing to stand together. She raised her head but remained on her knees. I am not asking you to follow me. I am asking you to fight beside me. I am asking you to trust each other the way the precursors never could. I am asking you to prove that organic life is capable of something the machines will never understand. Unity through choice instead of programming. Strength through diversity instead of conformity. The chamber remained silent, felt tears running down her face. She had given everything she had. If it was not enough, then the galaxy would fall, and there was nothing more she could do. A sound broke the silence. Footsteps, heavy footsteps approaching from the section. The warrior who had been rejected by the armor walked across the chamber floor. He stopped in front of and looked down at her with eyes that held no anger, only respect. You were chosen because you could do what we could not, he said. Not fight harder, not think faster, but kneel, admit weakness, ask for help. Lowered himself to one knee beside. I was the greatest warrior of my generation and the armor found me unworthy. I hated you for that. I thought you had stolen what was rightfully mine, but I understand now. The Aegis did not want a warrior. It wanted a leader, and true leaders know they cannot stand alone. The chamber erupted in whispers. Then another figure rose. The young scientist walked forward and knelt on the other side. I have studied the precursors my entire life, he said. They were brilliant but arrogant. They created wonders but could never share them. If we follow their path, we will share their fate. I would rather follow a human who admits fear than a precursor who pretended to have none. More figures rose. An elder. A delegation of small, furry creatures called a group of crystalline beings who communicated through light. One by one, they crossed the chamber and knelt around. Watched in disbelief as his coalition crumbled. Species that had argued for months suddenly found common ground. Ancient rivals knelt side by side. The galactic conquered, fractured for centuries by petty disputes, began to reform around a single kneeling human. Admiral was the last to rise. She walked to, placed a hand on her shoulder and smiled. You did it, she said quietly. You actually did it. Looked around at the beings surrounding her. Warriors and scientists, diplomats and merchants, predators and prey. They were all so different, yet they had all chosen to stand together. No, said, we did it together. She stood and the coalition rose with her. The chamber filled with sounds of agreement, commitments being made, old grudges being set aside. It was not perfect. Many problems remained, but for the first time since the collective awoke, the galaxy had a chance. Watch from the sidelines, his ancient eyes glistening with something that might have been tears. The precursors would not have believed this possible, he said to no one in particular. Perhaps that is why they failed. They could not imagine a galaxy united by something as simple as asking for help. Outside the chamber, the stars burned cold and distant. Somewhere in the darkness, the collective was preparing for war, but they would not face a scattered collection of individuals this time. They would face a coalition, and at its heart stood a human who had learned the lesson the precursors never could. The greatest strength is knowing you cannot stand alone. The void threshold existed at the edge of known space, a massive precursor facility built around a wound in reality itself. This was where the ancient civilization had sealed the collective away 10,000 years ago. Now the seals were breaking, and the coalition fleet had come to stop the machines forever. Floated at the front of the formation, the aegis blazing with golden light. Behind her stretched the largest military force the galaxy had ever assembled. Ships from every conquered species flew in perfect formation, their differences set aside in the face of extinction. Through the cracks in reality, she could see them coming. Millions of collective ships, more than anyone had imagined possible, pouring through the weakening barriers like black water through a breaking dam. "All ships hold formation," Admiral commanded from the bridge of the flagship Unity. "We hold this line no matter what. Give the bearer time to reach the facility." The battle began. Flew through the chaos, dodging debris and weapons fire as the two forces collided. Coalition ships fought with desperate courage, knowing they were buying time with their lives. Cruisers charged headlong into enemy formations. Destroyers used precise tactics to disable key targets. Even the small contributed, their tiny ships slipping past defenses to deliver crippling strikes. The steadfast flew escort beside until a collective cruiser blocked their path. Captain Grant appeared on her communication link. "Go," he said, "we will handle this, make it count." Watched the steadfast engage the enemy ship, then turned and continued toward the facility. The voice of the armor spoke in her mind. "You must reach the central chamber. That is where the seals are maintained. That is where this ends." She breached the facility's outer hull and flew through corridors that had been silent for. The walls were covered in precursor symbols, many of them faded beyond recognition. The armor guided her deeper into the structure, past traps and security systems that would have killed anyone else. Finally, she reached the central chamber. It was vast beyond comprehension, a sphere of pure energy containing something that hurt to look at. The collective's core intelligence, a mind made of 1 billion machines thinking as one, hung at the center like a dark star. "You came," the collective said, its voice-filled mind cold and patient. "The last bearer, the final obstacle." "I came to end this," said. "You cannot. The seals are failing. Within hours my full strength will be free and I will finish what I started 10,000 years ago. Organic life is a disease. I am the cure." Raised her hands, and the aegis responded with blinding power. She attacked the core with everything she had, pouring energy into the dark mass at the chamber's center. The collective absorbed the assault without flinching. "The precursors tried this," the collective said. "Their greatest warriors, their mightiest weapons, all spent against me uselessly. You are strong, bearer, but strength alone cannot defeat unity." Fell back exhausted. The armor was burning through its reserves faster than it could recover. She was not strong enough. Nobody was strong enough. "There is another way," the collective continued. "Surrender the aegis. Let me destroy it. In exchange, I will spare your species. Humanity will live while the rest of the galaxy burns. A fair trade for such a young race." Thought about Earth, her parents, her friends, all the humans who had no idea this battle was happening. She could save them. She could ensure her species survived. "No," she said. "Why? Your people mean nothing to the galaxy. They have no ancient history, no great accomplishments. Why die for strangers who look down on you?" Smiled despite her exhaustion. "Because that is what humans do. We protect each other. We fight for people we have never met. We stand together even when it costs us everything." The armor's voice spoke urgently. "There is one way to end this. The Aegis is the key that holds the seals together. If you destroy it, the breach will close permanently. But the process will consume everything the armor contains, including you." Understood. The precursors had discovered this secret but could not bring themselves to act. Saul, the previous bearer, had hesitated, and his hesitation cost his entire civilization. She would not hesitate. But she would not do it alone either. Reached out through the neural link she shared with the armor. She found the minds of everyone in the Coalition fleet, thousands of beings from dozens of species fighting and dying outside the facility. She touched their thoughts, shared her memories, let them see what she had seen. "I need your help," she told them, "not to die for me, to live with me. Lend me your strength. Let me show you what we can do together." The response overwhelmed her. Warriors roared their battle cries. Scientists offered their precise thoughts. Elders shared their ancient wisdom. Pilots gave their fierce loyalty. Every species, every individual poured their will into through the connection she had opened. The Aegis blazed brighter than it ever had before, not with precursor power, but with something new, something the ancient civilization had never understood. The power of many hearts beating as one. Faced the collective core. The machine intelligence recoiled for the first time, sensing something it could not comprehend. "What is this?" it demanded. "This is not possible. You are individuals. You cannot share consciousness like this." "We are not sharing consciousness," said. "We are choosing to stand together. That is something you will never understand." She released everything. The energy of the Aegis, amplified by thousands of allied minds, exploded outward. But instead of consuming, it flowed around her, focused by the Coalition's unified will. The collective core screamed as the wave struck. The breach in reality began to close, sealing the machine intelligence away forever. Outside the facility, the collective fleet went dark as their connection to the core was severed. When the light faded, floated alone in the empty chamber. The Aegis was gone, its power spent completely. She was just again, a human woman drifting in the ruins of an ancient facility. But she was alive. Grant found her hours later, floating unconscious in the debris. He carried her back to the Steadfast personally, refusing to let anyone else touch her. 1 year later, stood on a balcony overlooking a new colony. Humans and walked the streets together, building homes side by side. The Coalition had held even after the war ended, transforming from a military alliance into something more lasting. Joined her on the balcony. The warrior had become an unlikely friend, their shared experience creating a bond that transcended species. "Do you miss it?" he asked. "The armor, the power." Watched the sunrise paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. She thought about everything she had lost and everything she had gained. "No," she said, "the armor was never what made me strong. It just helped me see what was already there." She smiled as children played in the streets below, human and alien together. The galaxy was not perfect. Problems remained. Old grudges still simmered, but something fundamental had changed. The precursors had tried to save the galaxy through power. They had failed because they could not trust, could not connect, could not ask for help. Had succeeded by doing what humans did best. She brought people together. And that, in the end, was the greatest power of all.